Right? Let's do this.
Yes.
Keep disconnecting this thing.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, welcome to another episode of Soul Tapes Podcast.
Let's
am
go.
Adam Cruz.
My name is Antonio Reyes.
And we have a very special episode. Today we are going to do what we would like to call soul checks.
Soul checks.
We're going to do a little soul check-in. Thinking about 2020, thinking about, honestly, one of the thoughts that keeps going into my mind is how we started out this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were there, but we did like a gathering of young adults, and we started the year off with like a conversation on goals.
Okay.
And setting goals, and I literally wrote out specific goals that I had for this year.
Yeah.
And then around March hit, and we learned about a thing called COVID-19.
Yeah.
And that really threw a lot of those goals off.
Yup.
So, I guess I can start.
Yeah, go for
with
it.
my check-in. So, I've had a lot of conversations with friends and people, and I know that this season has been particularly difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I want to say that because when I think about where I'm at today, checking in on my soul, checking in where I'm at, I actually feel like I'm in a good place. But I want to preface that with saying I think my tough season was actually pre-COVID. So going back from March all the way till about September of 2019, I think those months I was like in a tough place. And it wasn't overly difficult or this, like, it's not like, it wasn't like super dramatic or anything like that. It's just I knew that I felt off. And I was trying to figure out like what that was or why, and it was like on multiple levels, personally, like with my in my faith, like my relationship with God, I just felt very stagnant. I felt stale. I felt like I didn't have any excitement in that. Like I felt off. Like I was having conversations, like prayers, and just kind of like trying to like understand like what I was going through or where I was at. And I just knew that like God was trying to teach me something or trying to tell me something, but I was just like, I felt very, I don't want to say like unhappy, like, but I just wasn't sure like where I was at, where I was going. Now, granted, this is like right when I started my MBA program. So I had like just finished my first class in the summer, and I learned a lot and had a really good class that was like really transformative for me. But I kind of went into a really busy season at work, and I was just like, for me personally, like when I get into like really busy seasons, I like just go. Like I'm not thinking, I'm not like probably taking care of myself very well. I'm just like working and getting it done and doing what I got to do. So I went into like a really busy season. So like once I got out of that and January hit and I had this new perspective, okay, like I'm going to achieve some goals. I started feeling like I was kind of gaining some momentum, but I still didn't feel 100%. So now thinking about where I'm at today, I feel like I kind of exited that season of just, struggling and kind of figuring out like where my life was kind of like headed. And particularly like into things of like, not like my like big scheme of life, but just like where the things that I wanted to achieve, like with music and like my, business ideas and things like that. And so I really felt, kind of during this COVID like season of being quarantined and being at home, for me, it was actually because I was blessed to be able to like work from home and be able to still maintain a living. And so thankfully, like for us, like we of course had our stressful seasons, but personally, I got time to kind of like reflect. I got time to slow down, and I really had a lot of time to just figure out like, honestly some kind of like next steps for where I feel like God might be taking me. So like even through this quarantine, we even birthed this podcast. I mean, that was something that was, really exciting. And so I think now where I find myself now, it's like, am I going to achieve all the goals that I had in the beginning of this year? Probably not. I'm probably not going to be exactly where I wanted to be, but I feel really comfortable kind of where I'm at. You know? So we can I can talk more about that later, but that's kind of, the long version of kind of my check-in.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Where
are you at?
So that man, I don't know. I feel like most of the people that I talk to, and we're honest with ourselves, quarantine or pandemic, this pandemic hit us hard. It pushed us to a place where even if we didn't want to slow down, it pushed us to slow down.
Yeah.
Which meant when you slow down, you start becoming aware of everything around you and everything who you are. So I think that for me, as well as you, I think my process it began pre-COVID. It began in November, I believe.
Yeah.
Changes start happening, new ways to adapt, certain dreams that I had to let go, certain expectations, new role, new responsibilities, let go of some control. All that mess around with me, and everything had to do with my identity, because my identity was wrapped around everything that I was doing. Mm-hmm. So I think that through that process, it became very hard. And to the point that I have a counselor. Yeah. So we were having I was having a counseling session, and I remember I was telling my counselor, like this was going on, and she was like, "Okay, I need you to stop." And I think I shared before. Yeah. I need you to stop for a whole week, and I need you to disconnect from everything. No phone, no social media, no everything. I was like, man, that sounds great. Maybe in the future, that and I didn't do it. Yeah. And my wife was actually pushing me, but I will keep postponing it. Oh yeah, next weekend. Oh yeah. I couldn't, the following weekend. Yeah. Which after a while, it became very, very hard for me to make the time to actually, take that time to go and disconnect from everything. And I start realizing, the struggles that I was having, even myself and everything that I was doing. I feel like I fall into this crisis of purpose and trying to really know who I was. Yeah. And because things were not working and so on and so on. So I think I went into that very dark place several times. And I remember that my wife, so kind, she kind of like worked through it with me. Yeah. But I think that that's the place where I was at, if I'm honest. And I think that obviously I'm in a better place, and we can talk through like what that looks like for us. Yeah. But I think going back to why to do this, right? Yeah. And I think many of us... Why are we doing this? Right. Why are we doing this? Of course. Why because, are we sharing? Are we sharing like, self-disclosure, like we're just trying to like let you know our life. But I think it's important for us to stop many times, right? And to check in where we at. I remember hearing this, a communicator saying many times, what would it look like instead of asking someone, how are you doing? How are you? What if you ask someone, how's your soul? Yeah. How's your soul? That's a deep question. It feels like a very different question. I will feel like nude in front of that person. Like, I don't know. Like, that's a deep question. Yeah. How is your soul? And I think that many of us, we really don't know. We will cover it. We will be pretty superficial. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's good. It's fine. Yeah. But some of us, we really don't know the state of our soul, because we haven't really stopped to look at it and say, am I good? Yeah. Am I... What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I'm really happy that we're doing this, because I think it's honestly for me, when I go through very like tough seasons in my life, I'm always like waiting for someone to ask me that question, you know? And I think me and you kind of both had these moments where we were like acknowledging that we needed to like have accountability and like have someone that we could talk to. But I think, you know, as people, like it's not always something that's built into the framework of our relationships.
True.
Like, I think that I'm the type of person that's like, I could be very considerate of people and, like, you know, talk and ask questions and do that. But like, I think what's actually harder for me, if I could think like for myself, is having my friendships and relationships to the point where us checking in on each other is a regular thing.
Yeah.
Is a part of our relationship. I think this year, especially with, you know, quarantine and everything, I started to develop that with some of my friends. But I still feel like it's a new thing at my point in time. I still think it's only a couple people that I have developed that with. And for me, like, I always think of, like, if I care about my friends and we care about each other, that we would do that more, you know?
Yeah. No, you're right. I think, and it's not an easy conversation, and I don't think not everybody can handle that conversation.
No, totally.
Right? Even more because we are in a place of maybe where we have responsibility as a leader.
Yeah.
Not everybody can handle how we feel and everything we're going through.
Yeah.
And I understood that through my process, you know. I can only be with certain type of people that I can be completely honest, you know.
Yeah.
This is exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
Because obviously I had a responsibility with, you know, leading a community, leading a church. But I think that it's important to develop those relationships and to really ask the tough questions, you know.
Yeah.
If I ask you, hey, Joseph, ask me the tough questions, you know. How am I doing here? How am I doing that? You know, like whatever it is. It's not an easy thing because being honest, right? It also brings some sort of responsibility, right? And also accountability to say, man, I'm not doing well.
Yeah.
That means that, like, I need to work on it.
Yeah, and I think it's fun. I always find these conversations funny because, like, not like funny in a weird way, but like, I mean, in the sense of, like, I don't know why we assume or we expect, like, that we always have to be okay.
True.
That we always have, like even like from a friendship perspective, like, I think that we would be, and this is something that's always a struggle for me because I've never been the best at having these types of conversations personally with friends and things like that. So I would love if everyone was okay all the time, and especially like as a peacemaker, like I don't want you to be having problems and struggling, right? But I think it's funny to me because I'm like, you know, of course, like as I've gotten older, I'm like, we are all going to be going through situations and struggles.
Yeah.
And especially when we know life is hard. And that's why I try to do a better job of asking like those types of hard questions. Like, hey, like, how are you doing? How's work? How's this? How's that? Like, not in the sense of just to hear oh, it's good. I'm okay. Like, you know, cause that's not really an answer, you know? And I think that to me, when I think about life and I think about, where we feel the most loved and valued and where we grow in our relationships with each other is when we find the right people. Because like you were saying, it's finding the right people to that will be able to handle our pain and handle our frustrations and handle our struggles. And it doesn't just have to be a spouse, but it can be a good friend. And it doesn't have to be a lot of people either. I think that's where I've learned, like, I don't need 15 guys that can check up on me. I need 3, you know?
Yeah,
and that's
completely.
okay.
Yes, and I think, so I feel that many times when we select that person, so for some reason I have not a weird way to evaluate who's that person, right? I think many times if I come into a conversation with someone, you know, I don't know, someone, and we start talking about, you know, this is how I feel, and that person begins to try to tell me what to do and to, you know, tell me don't feel that way, right away I disconnect.
Yeah.
You know, I disconnect.
Yeah.
You know, there's many times when it comes down to this, I feel like many times we need to be in a space, you know, where is willing to say, man, hey, I acknowledge that. Hey, man, I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's room for that. You know, there's room for us to do this. Say, this is how I feel. Someone says, "Bro, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you feel that way." Let's acknowledge that. Hey, that's true.
Yeah, and it's true. People can really suck in those situations.
Yeah.
Like it's just to be honest. Like people are not, you know, some people just are really bad with those situations, and because when you're really being honest about how you feel, it's not pretty all the time.
Yeah.
It's not what we
Yeah.
want to hear, and in those moments, we definitely need people to have the sense of understanding of how to respond and how to like carefully like navigate those conversations. Because the thing is, like, some people can't acknowledge that that's what's happening. Like when someone's like, "Yeah, I'm being honest," they don't realize, oh, we're not just having a surface level conversation here. Like this is a real serious conversation. And I think that's where people, or we need to make sure that we're, you know, having those conversations in a way that are going to be, help, you know, making sure they're healthy and with people who know how to navigate those conversations well, because
Because not everybody can handle the feelings, you know.
Yeah.
And so interesting because we were I think we were having a conversation a while ago, you know, and everybody's pouring their heart, you know, and crying and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and I've been in those spaces, you know, and you notice who doesn't know how to deal with that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you know the person who is like, I don't know what to do with what's going on, you know, and right away they protect themselves, you know, and when you ask them, I'm good, you know, you right away see that, right? So I think that just to talk about, it's okay, like you said, it's okay not to be okay, right?
Yeah.
More in this pandemic, you know, like many of us, we just came through a process and still going through a process where when we might feel apathetic, you know, we might feel discouraged. We don't feel the motivation to move on. We don't feel like there's the goals that I had, they're no longer there because I can't make them happen right now.
Yeah.
So where I go, right? So I think that it's okay to not be okay. And we acknowledge that, right?
Yeah.
It's good to actually soul check, right? What am I feeling? Why do I feel the way I feel?
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like to me counseling helped me a lot because I was burnt out. I was tired. I was exhausted. I became very cynical about things, you know? So all those things are signs of burnout. I didn't know that was the burnout, right? I just felt that way. And when I was reading a book of leadership, and so when I was having a conversation with someone else, and they were giving me all this, like, you know, when you feel this, I was like, man, I feel all of those things. So that means I'm burnout. I didn't even know that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So taking me back, my counselor helped me, you know, shout out to my counselor, Tanya. She helped me understand what is connected to, and I realized it's connected to my identity. You know,
Yeah.
I was getting stripped from all the things that I thought I was, and they make me who I was, but they're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think it's important to understand. I feel like, yes, I get it to sit down and not be okay, but I think we also have to dig in and to understand why do we feel the way we feel.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I think with these situations, acknowledging that right now, like let's say for example, like let's say we were having that conversation right now.
Yeah.
Like if you're being honest and open with me, I have to be okay with the fact that it might not get resolved right now.
Correct.
It might not get resolved
Yes.
today. And I think that is usually the struggle piece for people is if you tell me you're going through something, I want to find a solution for it.
Right away, yes.
I'm trying to fix it. Well, don't feel that way. No, it's going to be okay. And that's our response usually is like,
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with it just being unresolved.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I find the same struggle, especially when I was writing music early on, like from, you know, trying to give people, if I'm going to write anything that's serious and maybe like emotional or struggles, you know, I have to find a solution at the end of the song. and I have to make sure that if I end this song that Jesus came in and saved us or something, and find this way of like resolution, because a lot of times people feel like, oh no, like if you just write a song that's real and honest, and there can be this level of, oh, like there's no resolution at the end. But I think that what that creates in us is this idea that if we're going through a struggle and we don't find a resolution really quickly, that there's something wrong that's even deeper. And the reality is that there's going to be seasons and days and moments where we're not going to have a solution right away. And that's okay. And we need to be okay. And I think sometimes God is trying to teach us, like, hey, you can sit in your emotions, you can be hurt, you can be sad, you can be mad, but it's what you do while you're in those situations. And I think us having these soul checks and saying, hey, part of that is dealing with it individually. But part of that is also having the right people around you to have those conversations, and having those people that they're able to be okay when you're not okay.
No, you're right. I think that people that sits down with you in the middle of your mess and your chaos, to sit down just to say, look, man, I'm with you. I'm next to you. We might not have an answer. We might have an answer, but let's do it. Let's just be there. I think that's super important. Now, the question that I have, and I think every journey for every person is very different. There's not a time frame, right? If I'm checking with myself, like, how am I doing? If I allow someone to ask me, how am I doing? And be willing to be completely honest, not to try to excuse anything. I think that's important, because I think many times, and I can see it in my own life, there's certain people that I'm like, man, I feel uncomfortable letting them know that I haven't really put the time and the effort to deal with this, right? The question is, at what point do I need to start taking responsibility and start taking steps? Am I sitting down? And this is what it concerns me, right? I understand, even for myself, I'm still in the process of getting better. I'm still in the process of healing. And I sit down for a moment in my own feelings, saying, this is how I feel. I acknowledge that. But I think it has to be like, we need to take a moment and say, okay, I need to start moving forward. Let's try to look for help. I need to start looking for, what is the steps that I need to take so that I can move on. Because at the end of the day, my concern is that many times we make our home and the feelings, right? Right. That becomes our home. And that and the, I don't want to say the toxicity of the place, but the ups and downs of our feelings. We're okay with that. And I think and they start dictating the decisions that we make in our future. I think we need to start. We need to understand that too. We need to start making choices.
Like, I like what you're saying. Like, I think we need to, when we need to understand that when we get into those spaces, you almost need to give yourself like a time frame, like, of, okay, like, this is where I'm at. This is where I feel I'm not okay. But check in with yourself a month or 3 weeks or a week or two, depending on the severity or what you can control or not control, and say, like, hey, if a week from now I still feel this way, like, that's a problem. And
or a month or whatever.
Whatever it is. Like, if it's a certain time period, you're like, wow, this is not reasonable anymore. And I think for me, like, and that's the hardest part, I think, because when we acknowledge that and we know that there's an extra step of, hey, I need to have a conversation with someone, I think the most difficult part of that is being willing to be exposed. Is that we're not willing to expose ourselves to people and to have those conversations of, man, like, I'm just not okay. Like, I just need to have a conversation, whatever. Like, it's a lot harder than it sounds. Like, you know what I mean? I think when it's only me, myself, and I going through this, then I can live with it. But when I have to have that conversation of, man, like, I don't know why, like, it can be hard to have that conversation,
Yeah, no, I think I like to do it this way. I like to have the conversation with two type of people. The ones that are my peers, the ones that I look eye to eye and say, this is where we are. We are in the same journey and my way up. People that I've been mentored by, because I know that they're also going to keep me accountable. The problem is that many times we just stay with the people that are in the same journey, and we just throw, and we never go with someone who's gonna call us to a higher place, right?
good. Yeah.
So I think we like let's sit down, let's share with our peers, let's share with the people that are up, or people that are gonna call us to a higher place. Let's sit down, but let's have both of them, in the picture.
Yeah.
Because what I notice many times, I go to my peers because I know they're not gonna call me out to a higher place. They're gonna keep feeding that aspect of me many times.
Yeah.
Many times,
Yeah.
Let's say you find that right person. You don't want just that, right? You also want someone that is gonna call you to higher. Okay, let's do this. Let's take the steps. Don't stay there, right? And I think, not also. I don't think many times we need to understand, right? Someone calling us to a higher place, it's not neglecting our feelings.
No.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's not against us. It's for us.
Yeah.
And they love us to a level that is like, no, I'm not willing to let you stay where you at.
Yeah, and I think that's where having people, because the thing is, like, you have to have that relationship built ahead of time, because that's difficult. Because to know that you have to already know and walk into that conversation understanding that they do care, that they're not disregarding your feelings and emotions, but they are going to push you and challenge you. And yeah, that can be
that's so true, because okay, so let's play it out, because you already set it up for your future. Even if you're not in an unhealthy place, if you set up those boundaries and those people in your life for future, right? Like you said, you already should have those people. That's key. Many of us, we find ourselves in a very unhealthy place, and then we trying to figure out, okay, who's that person, right? And it's like, I get it. You might find them, but you are in a very tough position. You haven't given the space to those people to let you know, to assure you that they love you and they care for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's important to start playing those people. Say, okay, I might not be in an unhealthy place, but I'm still gonna have those people around me. I know who those people are.
Yeah. And I think too that these conversations need to get to the point where they're not nuanced and they're not, assumed. Because I think that's where I live. I think I live in that space a lot, where I know people that I can reach out to and go to, but I don't tell them, hey, you have permission to call me out. You have permission to reach out. It doesn't have to be overly oh yeah, once a month we're going to talk. No, it doesn't have to be that. But is hey, developing the habits of having those conversations regularly and checking in. I think that's something that when I think about this year, those are the things that I'm personally trying to commit to, of getting used to doing that with, whether it's my peers or with mentors. I acknowledge that with myself this year. I was man, I haven't had a conversation like that in a while, and I need to, because in order for me to grow, in order for us to get to the places we want to go to, if we have dreams and things and goals we want to meet, we need to surround ourselves with mentors and people who are going to help us. Even if what they're doing is different than what we're doing, but they have insight and things that we can trust, as far as how they can guide us.
That's true. I think a way to in a practical way, right? What should we do? I mean, you have some ways maybe that you do that. I think for me, when I do this soul check-ins, or when I need clarity, what I do is that I disconnect from the environment I'm at. Meaning, my mom lives in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah.
From that Sacramento area. And so when I feel clutter and it's hard for me, I go over there. It helps me disconnect from my routine, the monotony of life, and it puts me in a place where it's maybe a new environment, and it brings more clarity, and it helps me kind of reevaluate, okay, where am I? Why do I feel the way I feel?
Yeah.
Or maybe what is new, what is next? Or, what do I have to revisit in my own life? So I think when we do this soul checks, besides people or mentors, peers or mentors, I think also you not isolate yourself, but disconnect you from a minute, right?
Yeah.
Disconnect yourself from it and take that time, to say maybe 1, 2, 3 days.
Yeah.
Is very, very helpful.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, totally is. I mean, I think for me, I try to find really short like times that I can do that in. So like, you know, it's funny because I think I got to a place where I was like I outgrew the um like late night, like I'm about to go to bed prayer. Like I used to think like, oh, like, that's for when I was a
Yeah, yeah.
kid. Like people just, oh yeah, you just pray before you go to bed. Like, you just do that when you're a kid. Like you're an adult. We don't do that anymore. I used to like think that way. But now I started to realize like, I used to try to fight for quiet time. And I realized with myself, if I don't get it first thing in the morning, I'm probably not going to get it the rest of the day. And then once I'm laying down to go to bed, like I can still have quiet time. I can still, because sometimes I need time for my brain to shut off. I need time to like disconnect. And I don't have, like for me, I was like, sometimes I can't go anywhere. Sometimes I don't have time to go anywhere. And I just need to spend those 5 minutes just thinking, reflecting, like, really, asking myself those questions of just like, where am I at? Like, am I okay? Are things okay? Okay. If not, like, what do I need to do? Like, and it also helps me prepare for the next day. Like, hey, like maybe I didn't get it right today. But I can end tonight, find peace and start the next day, and trying to, take myself to the places where I need to be.
That's so good. Piggyback on prayer, right? I was reading. I haven't read the book, but I was reading the devotional. It's called Dangerous Prayers,
Okay.
and one of the days of the devotional was pray. And I love it. I think it's a great book about different levels of prayer, right? But one of the prayers that the author speaks about is ask God to expose your heart. And that's not something that we typically ask God
Yeah,
to expose our hearts,
yeah,
but we do. He will do it,
yeah.
and I think one of those things is an important thing. Maybe in the prayers for the ones who dig into your faith. I think
Yeah.
that's a good prayer. God, expose my heart, expose my agenda, expose my motives, expose the unhealthiness, expose
Yeah.
whatever it is. Just expose it.
Yeah.
And give me wisdom to navigate. Give me wisdom to learn how to deal with that. Because I think it's a very important thing. Because if we just hide things, we keep like put it in
Yeah.
protecting it. It's not gonna be helpful.
Yeah,
in
and
the long run.
there's a scripture that talks about healing through confession, and I think sometimes we think I believe that it doesn't even always have to be with confessing to a person, but even confessing to God and just saying, hey, like, man, I know, whatever I've been doing ain't working. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
have to
true.
be that deep,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's like, I
completely.
know, like, God, like, expose,
Yeah.
whatever's inside of me and help me to, get through this and help me find, strength to move past these things. And, I think that these journeys that we go through when it comes to finding ourselves in a down, like you said, like going, maybe feeling not, in a good place. I don't know. Like I was talking to my wife the other day. Like I think I've learned, because even like earlier this year when I said I wasn't in the greatest place, I think I got to a place where I said, you know what? I understand that life is going to always be a series of ups and downs. It's never going to be fully 100% perfect. It's never going to be everything that we want it to be all the time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to accept where I'm at today as this is where I'm at. And God, whatever you want me to learn, whatever you want me to receive in this time, like I will receive it. And I'm also not going to like fight myself over it, like fighting myself, thinking like, oh, like what's wrong with you? Like, why are you this way? Why aren't you more, joyful or excited? Or why aren't you like, you're better than that? You've been through worse. Like, yeah, I wasn't fighting myself, like saying, like beating myself up. Like, I was just like, okay, like, I don't really know why I'm going through this, and I don't need to know. Like, I mean, God will reveal that to me over time, and I know that it's a part of my life story, this journey. And I think I didn't beat myself up, but I didn't allow it to beat me up either.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, man. I feel like this is an important conversation. To take the time to slow down.
Yeah.
To take the pause. Be honest with yourself. be honest with others if you want to, is very helpful. If not, your our soul and our heart is not built to carry this.
Yeah.
It's gonna it might not affect us right now if we don't say anything, and if we neglect it or suppress that.
Yeah.
But it can affect us in a long run.
Yeah.
I seen it.
Yeah.
So I think that it's better if we actually willing to do that.
Yeah.
As men, it's a difficult thing to do.
Yes,
Totally. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
It's a difficult. We might seem that we're weak, or or whatever it is. Maybe as woman it's a little bit easier, but I think it's something that we need to take, because many of us, we take care of our body, right? We invest time, we invest money,
Yeah.
pay proteins and supplements, and pay gym, and we take care of our body, but we don't take care of our soul,
Yeah.
which is the most important thing, because out of that, life flows.
Oh,
That's
totally.
a point of reference.
Yeah, no, I shared about this a while back, but we invest in a fitness coach, we invest in financial advisors, we invest in in people that can help us learn things and teaching, but we're sometimes not willing to invest in our relationship with God and our faith and in our soul and the health of our emotions and things like that. And those are the things that everything else could be perfect, but if your soul is not, is unsettled, is uneasy, is chaotic, is in this space of just, uncertainty, like everything could be perfect. You could be in Hawaii on a beach and be unhappy and be, miserable. And that's not the type of life that I don't want to live. I don't want to live that way. And I don't want other people to have to live that way, because it's not, I believe that there's more, and there's more that God desires for us.
Yeah. I was reading a book called The Way of the Warrior. This
I've been reading it.
Yeah, you've been reading it. It's
Yeah, it's
amazing.
so good.
It's one of my favorite ones. And they talk about, right, how important is our heart, and our soul. And he talks at the beginning of the book, right, that the world will never find peace until the human heart finds peace.
Yeah, inner peace.
Peace, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how important our hearts. Perhaps the reason why our life is chaotic and our life is out of control is because our heart and our souls are out of control. It has no frame. It's just we haven't really tapped into it. I remember I don't know where I heard this, and someone was talking about, many times when people talk about, if you would have 3 wishes, what would you wish? Mm-hmm. Peace in the world, right? Or everybody to have food, or whatever it is, And someone said, I would ask for the human heart to change, because I feel like if the human heart changes, the world will change.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that we might diminish or minimize the importance of the health of our souls. Because we might not see so important, but once again, going back, that's the point or reference of the way we live life, the way we think we perceive life, right, and reality. So yeah, man, I think it's an important thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we live seeing our world from a very outside perspective, materialistic view. We're always thinking about if everything around us can improve and get better. But yeah, I agree, man. I mean, the value of our souls and our hearts and people being able to put more intentionality and value in that, then we might find a world that could actually experience peace and inner peace and not be at war and not be, fighting amongst each other, even on a day-to-day level. I see it all the time, and it's just like, man, that's a world that I think that, we would love to see.
Yeah. And just as I dig into this conversation, I take it back to Jesus, the most important, I believe, human being that exists, that I believe is God too, came not to conquer probably or perhaps one of the most important governments, which was the Roman Empire. He came to conquer the human soul.
Yeah.
And that's why he died for us, right? To conquer the human soul, because he knew if I change the heart, I'll change humanity and history.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and that's a process, right? It's a journey that we get to go through, and it's a journey that we get to choose every day. So, to just be encouraged wherever you find yourself today,
Yes.
Whether you feel, that you're struggling to hold on to peace, whether you feel, that you're in a good place, not in a good place. This year's been difficult for a lot of us. And for some of us, I know there are people that I've, felt like they've experienced something new, and maybe they were able to find blessings in the midst of all this. And I know that no story, like we started with saying, no journey is the same, but, we get to make decisions every single day, that we get to have a breath in our lungs and wake up. And so I would, encourage you to lean into what it is that God might be trying to speak to you, and to help you through these seasons.
Yeah. And we lean into this, I think we talk about this, I think we will do a disservice to people. We don't acknowledge that obviously our faith is a big piece of what sustained us and help us through our soul checks, right?
Definitely.
And if perhaps some of you guys don't, consider that. It's a great option. Trust me, it will maybe change your future in your life. But let's go, family.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was awesome. Make sure to do a soul check, first with yourself, and then if you have a friend, have a mentor, have someone, I would encourage you to do a soul check in this season, man. Because it's needed. We clearly can see the value of just having honest conversations and having the right people to open up and be able to experience change and experience joy, even in the midst of chaos.
Yeah, and if you have more questions, maybe in the comments, leave a comment here,
DM
share
us.
it, DM us, whatever you want. We're here available for you, so yeah.
Again, we are the Soul Tapes Podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
We out.
No disrespect, I switch the gear to burn some rubber. Pressure cooking in my brain, I feel the pain from another life. Like how God gone and take my homie, yeah, you know the fight.